I've always tried to earn my place around those type of people that were top performers, and that's the closest thing I ever found is like a shortcut to success.
Well, if you put yourself with the best teachers, best people to show you how to do something, then you're going to learn it the best way to begin with instead of having to learn by trial and error.
Tonight I get to chat with the fight legend, Dan Henderson. Dan's in the UFC Hall of Fame. He's a Pride champion in 2 different weight divisions, yeah. He had Strikeforce champion. And you were the first man, I believe, that you held belts in 2 different organizations, major fight organizations at the same time. Is that right?
2 different weight classes at the same time.
I see.
In a major organization, I think is what they called it.
Gotcha. So you're the original double champ.
Right. Yeah. And I honestly didn't think that much of it until nobody did it for a long time, and then I think what's his name, the little leprechaun, did it.
Yeah, McGregor.
Yeah.
I think there's only 4 people at UFC that have done that. It's McGregor and Amanda Nunes and DC and Henry Cejudo.
Yeah.
And Henry, I've met Henry. We've done an interview together, and he calls himself the triple champ because he also won an Olympic gold medal. But you were on the Olympic teams as well, yeah?
Yeah.
A couple times.
Yeah. Back in 1992 and 96, before I started fighting.
Where does this journey start? So you won. You're one of the most decorated guys ever in fight history. You're a guy that, when I talk to other champions, they talk about Dan Henderson with tremendous respect. That you were inspiration to Glover Teixeira and some of the current champions and previous champions. And where does life start for you that leads up to these other accomplishments of beating the hell out of some of the toughest men in the world?
I literally, my dad got me started in wrestling when I was 5. He was a wrestling coach, and I wrestled my whole life and through 2 Olympic teams. And then one of my main training partners for wrestling was Randy Couture. And so we were really good friends and talked about this MMA thing that we'd seen on TV for a few years. I think the UFC started in 93, and 1997, Randy gives me a call and says, "Hey, you want to go fight in this tournament down in Brazil? I'm fighting in the heavyweight division, but they have a lighter weight tournament," which was, I think, about 175. And I was wrestling 180 at the time and a half. And I was like, okay. And it was about 3 weeks away. And then before we went down to Brazil, Randy had got a call from the UFC. He had put an application in, they denied him, but somebody got hurt and called him up and said, "You want to fight?" And it was literally about a week before, a week after the tournament in Brazil. So he didn't go down to Brazil. He went and fought in the UFC for the first time. And I went down to Brazil. I think Tom Erickson took his place going down to Brazil. Big cat, Tom Erickson. So that's where it started. And I just, I guess was just naturally kind of good at it, and then slowly got better. And I never thought I was going to make a career out of it. After I quit wrestling, I said, I'll do it for about a year. And then I had plans to go to chiropractic school and do that, and decided to put it off for 4 years and try to make another Olympic team. And I didn't make the next Olympic team, and then just started fighting full time.
Wow. So chiropractic school, I wasn't ready for that. I hear a lot of stories, and I wasn't ready for that. That you go from chiropractic school to slamming men and contorting them in unnatural positions and so on. So
I definitely went to my share of chiropractors over the years, and thought pretty highly of it and was going to do it, but decided not to go to school for 4 years. Instead, I was just going to fight.
The Brazilian tournament, is that one of these like multi-fights in a night tournaments like the original UFC show was?
Yeah, it was 2 fights in a night. I won that. And then about a year later, I fought in the UFC 17, I believe I fought in, and 2 fights in a night also. And then from there, I went down to Japan and fought in another tournament called Rings was the organization, and it was the King of Kings tournament. It was a 32-man tournament. So it was over a couple different events. So I had 2 fights in the night, and then I came back and had 3 fights in the night, which was probably my toughest night of fighting I've ever had. Just I had tweaked my knee in the second fight pretty bad against Big Nog. He pulled guard and jumped and landed on my knee and popped it, and I had one more fight to fight after that. So it was a tough night, but I won. So
Most guys they get about 2 jabs and a cross, and they be ready to stop fighting with somebody. So that's a hell of an accomplishment. It sounds crazy to a normal person today, because you think that UFC is pretty civilized compared to something like that, where the original fights today versus 1993, when they're having I think you had to win 4 fights. I think Royce Gracie, if I'm not mistaken, won 4 fights and then 3 fights in the next tournament, or I might have that back.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know that there were multi-fights. I don't.
Yeah, but it's
at least 3 for sure. Yeah.
I'm just acknowledging that. One of them was 3 and one of them was 4, and I don't know which was which.
Yeah.
But I know the first 2 started that way, and Royce won both of them, and I had the pleasure of chatting with Royce, as we are now, and that must be a long day,
I guess it depends on how the fights go, but if they go the distance, it makes it a little longer and you're worn out a little more. And that tournament where I had 3 fights in a night, all 3 of them went the distance, so it was tough.
There's no big money in this at the time. I think Royce was winning $50,000 at UFC. What did you win for that? The Japanese tournament that you described?
Well, the Japanese tournament, had I taken second place, I would have won a total of about $30,000 for 5 fights. But the last fight alone was worth $200,000, so I won $230,000.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
Inflation-adjusted dollars.
Yeah.
That's over $500,000.
So yeah, that'll pay for a little bit of gas nowadays.
You could buy 3-4 gallons with that kind of money. Buy 3-4 gallons in the current economy.
Yeah.
So that is real money. So that's a lot more than UFC was paying for their original tournaments.
A lot more than I'd ever seen at that point. So
inflation adjusted, maybe that's $700,000-800,000 today, something like that. So what'd you do with that big prize money?
It doesn't last forever, but I think I got home and bought a car, family car, and just supported my wrestling that way for the next year. I wrestled after that, and then didn't make the Olympic team. I think I did wrestle until 2001, and didn't make the team again, and decided that I wanted to fight full time, and I was pretty good at it. I think my first fight in Pride was against Vanderlei, and I had lost to him. It was a good fight though. His eye was super huge and swollen, but
he's known to be a very tough man. Though.
Yeah, I had no idea who he was at the time. I was actually scheduled to fight Vitor Belfort, and about 2-3 weeks before, I guess he had got hurt, and they said, you're gonna fight Vanderlei Silva now. I was like, okay. I didn't know who he was, but I was new to the fight game, so.
Vitor's my buddy. I know Vitor.
Yeah.
We got along very well. So we got some future plans together.
Oh, cool.
Now, the thing you said about Randy, that's amazing. And so he's a guy that goes on to be a Hall of Famer like yourself, and a multi-time champion. I believe 6-time champion, a couple weight divisions, and so he didn't make the original cut to be in that tournament.
I guess not. He put an application in, and they said no, and then.
Later goes on to be, as you are, one of the legends of the sport, one of the big OGs.
Yeah.
What was your early life like? You're pretty straight-laced guy, or you have some rambunctious youth as I did, or?
I don't know. I stayed out of trouble, but I did my share of damage. But I was a pretty good kid generally. I tried to stay out of trouble, I didn't get caught much, one of the two. Yeah, I mean, my dad was pretty strict growing up, so I kind of, maybe I was good at not getting caught. I don't know, but
My dad wasn't there, and my mother was not the best mother. So I was a very rambunctious teenager and even a child, I suppose. And I'm a pretty square guy as an adult that I don't need to be involved in any sort of mischief in my life, or
right,
nothing that would cause me any troubles,
right,
But I don't drink so much, drink frequently, but on a wild night I'll have 3 beers or something.
yeah, okay,
But as a teenager, I was always in trouble, and I'm sure I was the only high school dropout that went to my graduate school, and I collected 3 college degrees later. But I spent my life in entrepreneurship. I didn't want a normal life. I didn't want to do what normal people do, and I knew I wasn't supposed to have a job. I was willing to work hard. I was willing to think, but
right.
I wasn't the type of person that was supposed to have a job. So,
You didn't want to work for someone else, huh?
man, I'm happy to work hard, but
Right.
I'm in my 40s and I still work a lot of 12 or 14-hour days, but it doesn't, I'd say I'm very productive 12 or 14 hours of the
Right.
day, but I wouldn't say that it feels like work all the time,
Right.
But I'm doing things that I generally enjoy.
So who was on your list of people you wanted to emulate?
Well, this is a terrible answer, but it's the truthful answer. I was looking at, I grew up around a bunch of criminals. That was how my father and my family was. So I was looking at people like John Gotti, reading about John Gotti. I thought, well, if you're going to be a gangster, then
Be the top one.
well, he was really the last honorable gangster. That after that, they all start telling on each other, and he was an honorable man. You could question other decisions or things that he did in his life, but he wasn't the type of person that betrayed his friends like other people in that type
Right.
of thing did later. I looked at Richard Branson. I looked at, tried to learn some things about Warren Buffett, things like that. And I never met Warren. I did meet Richard Branson later in life, and he's an interesting character. And we were on a boat cruise. On this boat cruise, there was a lot of very well-known people. Tim Ferriss and Gary Vaynerchuk became very famous later, and who else is there? So Russell Simmons, and there were about 1,300 people, and it was like an invite-only thing.
Right.
And Branson didn't have time to come for the whole 4 days with us, so these kids rented out the whole cruise ship, invited me and a bunch of other people those type of people. But again, Branson couldn't come for 4 nights, 5 days, and be on the cruise. So we're in the Caribbean Sea, and he comes and he lands in his helicopter on the ship, and then he comes and does a little talk for 40 minutes or so on stage, and hangs out for 2-3 hours with us afterwards. And he left and got back on his helicopter, and I thought that was about the most James Bond shit that I ever saw in my life at that time, and maybe that's still kind of a James
pretty
Bond
cool,
type.
yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, well, reminded me that I was doing pretty good. I was getting invited to some pretty cool places,
Right,
but
right.
I was still relatively poor, and I better keep working.
Yeah, I don't think I've been invited to one of those yet. A cruise like that.
It was a unique experience. I didn't have good role models. I'm curious where your life circumstances that I had a lot of negative role models. I'd look at things they did, and I'm like, well, I'm definitely not going to behave like that, and I'm definitely not going to do this. And my brain worked well, and I was not shy about working, but I kind of didn't know what the hell to do. And I worked a lot earlier in life to kind of earn my spot, to have better teachers or better mentors, and just show me a better path in
Right.
life. And I always took that seriously, that if you had somebody that was performing well at something, performing significantly in life, that who the hell would be a better teacher? So
Right.
I've always tried to earn my place around those type of people that
Right.
were top performers. And that's the closest thing I ever found is like a shortcut to success. That
Right. Well, if you put yourself with the best teachers, best people to show you how to do something, then you're going to learn it the best way to begin with, instead of having to learn by trial and error type of thing.
trial and error is very painful. So I did that early in life, and that I get suspended from school, put in jail,
Right.
locked up in jail for fighting when I was in jail too. So trial and error without good guidance, I thought was very
Yeah, I guess
emotionally painful and sometimes physically painful.
that's how MMA was. Learning MMA when we first started. When I first started with Randy and I were training partners together in that, and there was no MMA coaches, so we kind of had to figure out what worked, what didn't work for our wrestling type style, and so it was kind of trial and error, but everybody was kind of in the same boat, learning it at the same time. So we did kind of evolve with the sport. I mean,
What was that like? At the time, maybe it felt normal to you, but reflecting back on that, there's a dozen or so real MMA gyms that are the big deal the professionals go to, and then there's hundreds of MMA gyms scattered
Right.
everywhere that purport to be MMA gyms that really didn't exist. And when you were coming up, you were a fantastic wrestler, but they didn't have a gym you could go to
No.
like there is today, huh?
yeah, so I mean, we just basically Randy and I had started a gym and Team Quest and then just started training and figuring out what worked, what didn't work, and teaching that to our guys. And we'd have good striking coaches, good grappling coaches for submissions, and kind of teaching us the stuff that we needed a little more work on, and we would kind of put it together with how we thought those would work with our style. And both wrestled Greco, so we were very similar in a lot of ways, but I kind of figured out that I could hit hard and at some point in my career and use my wrestling to more be able to stay standing up most of the time with my opponents, and Randy kind of used his wrestling to wear the guy out and just beat him up over a period of time, and then take him down and beat him up and wear him out and TKO him hopefully.
I remember seeing Randy in these high crotch and picking guys up and slamming them, and I remember watching you, and I was a lot younger, and just thought this guy is. I told you this off camera, but I thought this guy is tough as hell. That you did. I don't recall who your opponents were, but I'm certain it was you. That sometimes you're getting smacked around pretty good, and you're just had the toughness to persevere through that and won a lot of those fights, even when you had some pretty challenging moments.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not a quitter and very competitive, and I think one of my biggest things that I was always very technical, tried to be very technical, but probably didn't look it sometimes. But in addition to that, just being mentally tough, which is a hard thing you don't really teach that, or maybe, I don't know if it was a natural thing, but I maybe got it from my dad and my main wrestling coach also were both taught me how to be just mentally tough and no quit. So
Do you have? I hate to. It sounds like a weird question to ask, but do you have some tips about that you remember? Specific, shifts in psychology or ways of thinking that helped you through some of those difficult moments?
we would always do and specifically kind of take time and try to visualize wrestling matches or different moves. This is before I started fighting with, my wrestling coach would do this, and then he'd also kind of help coach mentally. If you have any negative thoughts coming in, get rid of them right away, replace them with positive thoughts, and like, you don't want to be worried what someone else is going to do to you. You want to be aware what they might do, but you want to focus on your offense and what you're going to do to him. And that's kind of a little bit more on the positive side rather than negative thoughts of what if he does this, what if he does that. Typically, if you think that way, it's always gonna happen. He's gonna catch you in it. So, I just kind of, I grew up competing in wrestling. and after 2 Olympic teams, and I kind of already knew how to compete. I was already fairly seasoned, mentally tough, and then just there was very, and even now there's very few MMA fighters that have had that type of competition experience, especially at that level. So that definitely helped me out quite a bit. You know,
What do you see? You go to social media today, and I see a lot of things on there along the lines of get rich quick or get results overnight. It looks preposterous to me in numerous ways. But what do you think when you see these sort of things that you're going to be lose 20 pounds this week, like as if that's healthy, or make $1 million in no time, or that sort of philosophy.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think anything that you want to accomplish, if you set a goal out there, and most of the time it's a pretty tough thing to achieve, and it won't happen overnight, and it won't happen without hard work, regardless of what it is, if it's sports or business or just life. If it's something that it's going to take a little time to achieve, and those are usually the things that make you feel a much bigger sense of accomplishment as well, and feel better about yourself that you accomplished something. The tougher it is to do, and the more work that you've had to do it. So.
This is Derek Moneyberg reminding you, don't stay poor. You see, in a first world country, poverty is a lifestyle choice. You know what else is a lifestyle choice? Being a millionaire. There's little women in the world that are outworking you right now on a Sunday. The poor thing, you can choose to do better. You can choose to be more. You can choose to learn more and earn more. Click that link below. Do yourself a favor, learn something. Learn more so you can earn more. And most importantly, don't stay poor.